Okay, we are on. So, what I wanted to do in this recording, Nora, as I was mentioning, is this is a companion for my updates presentation in Florida Drupal Camp and wherever it gets accepted. The idea is to demonstrate the concepts that I'm using in terms of actually executing the updates. So we're going to use an old site. It's in version 8.9.3. And we're going to move it all the way to more modern versions. We're not going to go all the way because at some point the process becomes repetitive. But we're going to hit some hiccups that are going to show people the concepts that I use or the ideas that I use to make these upgrades and updates, not upgrades, easier.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So let's start. As I mentioned, we have a little site here, and it's a site that was created in Drupal 8.9.3. I completely scraped it. So basically, we have an empty site with just the modules and the themes enabled. So we don't have content. We don't really have anything. So we're not going to concern ourselves with anything that is custom. So we have recommendations for stuff that is custom, but we are not going to, do it in this video. So let's start with the first part. The first part is, let's talk about the composer JSON. Composer JSON is going to be your main tool. So when you have a site that is this old, you are going to see, and I'm sorry because I don't, here's the composer JSON. You're going to have a site that is old, and it was created originally, the composer file was created with what we did originally with Drupal 8, right? And I wanted to use this. Not many people is still in Drupal 8, but if you are this back far away, or this far back in time, you need to be aware of something. We switch from the Drupal Composer Drupal project that we use at the beginning to the Drupal recommended project. So one way to recognize it is that originally we had Drupal core directly in the composer JSON, and if you see my little mouse right there, but the new one use core recommended. So the first thing that we need to do is to create somewhere in your hard drive outside the site that you are updating a blank core recommended project, Drupal recommended project version 8. What this is going to give you is an empty composer that is done with the standards that modern versions of Drupal are using. That way, as we move in time and we come closer to Drupal 10, we're not going to have issues with everything is expecting the way it is. So what I did is I already did this, and I created the project. Then I grabbed the composer JSON and it created, right? And added what I needed from the original composer. And the things that you're going to do is the modules, anything that is before core and after core in here, I need in there. Probably you are going to start looking at whatever is scaffolded if you're using scaffolding, and especially to everything that is the installer paths. And I'm not going to go into installer paths because I'm assuming everybody right now has done Drupal 9, Drupal 10, so you know what installer paths are, but you make sure you have those correctly. For those who don't know, installer paths is a package from Composer that allows Composer to put your Drupal packages in the right place. So if look for Drupal libraries, go to the libraries folder. If look for Drupal modules, go to the module contrib folder automatically every time you install, remove, or play with them. Also can change the root. We see that here is web. If you are in AQS doc root, and if you are in different hosting, it can be something different. So Just make sure what you have here that is very specific to Composer, so nothing about the special repositories, modules, the PHP version, I recommend not to do it, and the installer paths, you copy them. So as a result, I created or copied another Composer, but this is with the Drupal recommended project here. And of course, the way we know is correct is because it used Drupal core composer scaffold and Drupal core recommended. And that's what we want. That is the right way to bring Drupal in. And the modules and packages that are in Composer are the same. And the installer paths that are in Composer are going to be the same as well, just organized by default. Very well. So this is the first step. The first step is to create a Composer JSON that is absolutely equivalent to what we're doing right now, but with the modern Composer 2. That's another reason. You can be on Composer 1 when you started with Drupal 8. So you want to have everything that is working with Composer 2.
Yeah, there was lots of changes that happened since the beginning of Drupal 8. So these are all very common things that I think folks will encounter.
That is true. So the next part that we need to do, and that was kind of our starting our starting point is put it in your local. You're gonna do this locally. And I recommend using DDEV because DDEV is the easiest way to do it. So you're gonna start by configuring a DDEV with DDEV config, and you're gonna make sure that it's Drupal 8 recipe because we are on Drupal 8. It will be Drupal 9 if you're on Drupal 9. It will be Drupal 10 if you're in Drupal 10. And the reason for this is because we're gonna see it. I already did that. Just that if you see the .ddev config YAML, you're gonna see that I'm using the Drupal 8 recipe, and this is what is important. I'm using the right PHP version. And here comes the first tip. All Composer calls while you're upgrading need to happen inside DDEV. And I'm going to very quick explain this is if I run Composer install directly, Composer is going to use the PHP version of my machine, which most likely is not 7.4. And if you are in a Drupal 8, it's going to give you a bunch of errors and conflicts. And it's going to get confusing. So I add DDEV at the beginning. Once my DDEV is started and everything, we're not going to talk about that because there is another talk about that most likely, whenever you see this. DDEV Composer install, Composer was going to use the PHP that is inside DDEV. That at all times in our process is going to be the right PHP for the version of Drupal we are on. So my first, I created the DDEV, it's already started. I have the site, but one of the first things that I need to do is to copy my Composer new into the original composer.json. And before I do this, I just wanted to show you. Let me see, where is it? Oh. Here, we have our site. And our site is in Drupal 8.9.13. And it's already running inside DDEV, and it has warnings, and it has all these things. It's using PHP 7.4. We're not going to concern about that. We're going to start our process of upgrading. Very good. So I'm going to copy this new Composer JSON on top. Now, Composer JSON at this moment does not match your composer.log. So the only way to do that will be to try and do a Composer update log, but that I have never trusted that, so we are going to go ahead and run a composer update -w, which means we're going to run an update. So we're telling composer, use composer JSON, ignore composer lock. And -w is telling it, install any dependencies that you need that you don't have. So let's run it. Oh yeah, I forgot about that. When I'm on the recipe here, I'm on Composer version 1, right? So that flag doesn't exist. Let's see if just a simple Composer update. Yeah, here it is. Dash dash. With dependencies is gonna work. So it's not working, and this is something that I wanted to show you, it's not working because we regenerated the composer to work with composer does, the composer JSON, right? So I actually need to go here, change to version 2 of composer, and restart my DDEV.
So just to follow here, you used a new version of the Composer file that is compatible with Composer version 2, correct?
Create project. We need to make sure we have Composer JSON is going to be your main place that you're going to be working on upgrades in a way, right? And when you move into the end of Composer 8 and 9 and 10, we use Composer 2. The original Composer file I had was on Composer 1. And this is a very old site, so it's not going to be most of the cases. When I use the Drupal 8 recipe, it used Composer 1. So just to be aware of that, and I wanted to show that. So now I can.
So now that you've effectively restarted DDEV with the newer version of Composer, right?
Yes. So I should have now a Composer 2. Yep. So that means now I can run Composer updates. So it's going to analyze your Composer JSON and see what do we need. And here we find our first beautiful message of Composer conflicts. This is a simple one. You're going to find many, and sometimes they are long and complicated. Read one by one. Usually, you only have one package giving you troubles. And I hope, I don't remember if we're going to find something like that here, but usually it's one package, but that package locks another package, that locks another package, and all of them are going to show in the conflict. So one technique that you need to practice is to learn how to read those conflicts. The first one is with Drupal Composer, Drupal Scaffold. But if you remember at the beginning, we said that we use Drupal Core Composer Scaffold. This is happening, and then I let this happen on purpose because of this reason. I mentioned you need to bring everything that was on the other composer, right? Before core and after core. So all your modules, all your packages that were called, you need them because probably your database is using them. You don't want to risk to know if it's enabled or not enabled. You never know, especially with old versions of Drupals, if a module that got enabled kind of is still running some code or some database or something that is being called from your database. So you want the exact code to be created, even if not enabled. But when I created the Composer JSON, Let me close it here because now we have a new version. I brought this package, which was the one originally done in Drupal 8.
Mm-hmm.
So to tell you a little bit of a story, at the beginning, we discovered that we needed a scaffolding. So somebody did the package Drupal Composer, Drupal Scaffold. What is this? When you upgrade Drupal core is going to replace everything that is in the core folder and in the web folder. So on the root folder of your web server plus the core folder is going to be replaced. That includes htaccess and some other files. I mentioned htaccess because that is the most common file that you scaffold. You do custom redirects. Maybe you have some old SEO redirects that you added onto your htaccess. Those redirects are going to be replaced every time Composer core is updated. So scaffolding allows me to configure in my Composer JSON, which we're not going to take a look right now because it's not part of this conversation, but you can find documentation about it. It's going to tell it what files not to replace. And you have different options, not to replace, patch. You can actually patch the Drupal Composer file that comes with Drupal core, which is better because you get whatever changes happen on htaccess as core grows. Or you can just basically tell it, do not replace it, and you keep the original htaccess. Now think about that in terms of aside this all, it's very probable that your htaccess gets outdated. So be aware of that at some point, you need to bring your modifications to that file into a modern htaccess for Drupal. But the scaffolding protects you from not losing those changes. Did that make sense? I hope I explained it well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think what you're saying is that the scaffolding, helps you to protect certain files as you define, that may
Correct.
be things you don't want to change.
Correct. That will be changed in any way because they are part of the package.
Mhm.
So now, in the past, we used that. In the new versions of Drupal, we want to use this. So really what Composer is telling us is this file is giving me some issues, but I don't really need it. So that's one of the easiest fix when you make that analysis. You go.
So it's recognizing that we're trying to use two different scaffolding methods, correct?
Not necessarily is recognizing that the package Drupal Composer Scaffold, and I'm asking a version that is bigger than 2.5, is satisfiable by these possible versions of the module of the package, but that is requiring a plugin 1.0. So not only that package is old, Composer plugin API is part of Composer. That means it's trying to use Composer 1. So, but I don't need it, right? So I'm just simply going to take it out because I have the other scaffolding file.
Okay.
Now,
so
when
it's
you
not
do
the
this,
Composer is telling us that we have two scaffolding.
no,
but
it's telling us that that package has a conflict.
As a conflict. Okay. And after manually taking a look, we can see that there's two different scaffoldings that we're trying to use at the same time. The newer one is the other one, so we can remove this one, correct?
Correct. Now, when I try to take it, I still have another problem, which is very similar. And this happens with little plugins. So this plugin or package that is a plugin for Composer that is called the Composer Installer Extender extends a default package installed by Drupal recommended called Composer Installer. Remember when we talk about the little package that allows you to allows Composer to install modules in modules contrib, themes in themes contrib, libraries in libraries, etc., by giving them the paths of the type of file. For that to actually work, we use Composer installers. But there is a way in the future for you, or right now, if you want to add npm libraries via Composer, there is an assets.packages.org where all those are as part of Composer, but you need to add the repository and a way to have custom paths, kind of, right? That's where this package, Composer Installer Extender, comes in. And there is a lot of documentation about this in Drupal.org, so go look for it over there. But what is important here is we are having the same version. The package is fixed to version 1.1.2 and is not matching. The problem with these plugins is they may have been done with a different version of Composer, right? In this, we can use Composer. Composer is our friend. So let me clear all these errors so we can have it at the
I'm
top.
sorry,
And
actually, show that message again. I think I understand what you're saying, but just for anyone else that might not be seeing it,
let's
believe
try and run it again.
the error message seemed to indicate what version it was not compatible. So it says that the root composer requires this version 2 of the composer installer extender, but currently it's blocked to a version 1. And because we are directly managing or changing, excuse me, composer versions as part of this update, we're thinking that that's the problem, right? Is that we changed the composer version, and so now we have a different version that we might need to use of this composer installer extender.
That is correct. And since I know it's not a Drupal package, it's a composer package, it's very possible that it has to do with versions of composer. So I'm going to clear again. And here you use the advantage, let's call it that way, of using Composer, because Composer knows usually what version let me see, I don't have the command here saved. Probably I did it without DDEV. Yeah, we're going to remove it. And again, I said, run all of these inside DDEV. I'm simply going to tell Composer, remove it. Don't do any updates. Don't try to install anything. Don't try to check your Composer log. Just take it away.
And the no update flag, what does that do?
Stopping Composer from actually going through the dependencies, trying to bring packages that are new or anything. Every time you do a remove or a required, Composer goes, it's equivalent to a Composer update, but it's going to do it based on your Composer log. So it's going to try to use the versions in log.
So it's simply just removing the line from the Composer JSON as well as removing the code from the code base?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet, because I said not update. But I'm going to take it out and I'm going to require.
Okay. And
after I do that,
do an update. I noticed you had the no update on there. Okay, go ahead.
I had the no update. I'm just letting Composer change the versioning that is required based on the compatibility with everything else that is in the file Composer JSON.
Gotcha.
Composer 2 and everything that I have in there. And that means now I can go back to my original task. Update. Because my Composer log is a mess right now because it's created with the old Composer that we replaced. So very good. Now we have that again. So probably I need to run. Actually, in this case, it might be better for me to come to Composer JSON because I'm about to run a Composer update, right? And I repeat, because I'm about to run a Composer update, I can do this and it's just delete that line from Composer JSON. So it doesn't even try. It's again the same Drupal Composer, Drupal scaffold, which is giving us an issue.
Okay.
It did not execute the delete of the line because it was giving errors. If Composer gives an error, it does nothing. It does nothing. So I take it out and we try again. And now it's updating dependencies. And it's also running some updates on my modules, on my packages, on my dependencies, all based on the constraints of my composer JSON, which is still Drupal 8. So if I find core somewhere in here, I see that it's installing Drupal 8.9.20. So now we went from 8.9.13 to 8.9.20, which is good. That's the latest minor version of patch version of Drupal 8.9. And that's what we want to do. Wherever we are in the time of Drupal, whatever version we are always want to go to the latest patch version before moving to a next minor version. And we want to go all the way to all the minor versions of that particular version of Drupal. So major is 9. In this case, major is 8, minor is 9, patch is 20. As we can see here, we want to go to the latest one on 9 before we can go to 8.10, which doesn't exist, but as an example, or the next 9.1 that makes sense to me at this point. So now that we know Drupal core was updated and modules were updated, every time we run composer update, it needs to be followed with a not composer, a DDEV, drush, updb, and update databases. And we're going to see that some modules, CAPTCHA, layout builder restrictions, shield, web form, Yoast SEO, CAPTCHA, node, shield, and XML sitemap have update hooks that need to happen. So what I have in my database is compatible on my site. What I have in my site, the database, is compatible with the new versions of the modules that my composer update brought. Whatever that case has been. We are trusting Composer JSON at this moment. We assume Composer JSON is going to go look at the modules and make sure they're compatible with Drupal 8, right? And it's not going to bring a modern version that is not.
Now this does seem quite a lot. I even going from several patch versions to several patch versions. Would you say that that's typical for there to be that many hook updates with patch version updates like that?
It is not typical. The reason for that, as you can see, there is no core updates. It's because the site is so old that some modules got updated.
Gotcha.
So if the CAPTCHA module got updated to a different version, the layout builder restrictions, the shield module, the web form module, Yoast SEO, and then there is some other stuff that can be there because sometimes minor versions may have some update hooks, patch versions. But this is what is interesting. When I run Composer update, I had a problem. Somebody's giving me an error. Now, in here, always read this little red thing. It's going to tell you who is the culprit.
This was after you ran the update.
Composer update. Immediately, it run a little bit, telling me update completed, update completed, update completed for Yoast SEO, right? But then I got an error. And it's telling me that it's something, and if you keep reading carefully, you're going to see that it's Yoast SEO module, which is having a problem. It's having a problem with my current version of Drupal 8, with my current version inside the DDEV, so PHP 7.4, Drupal 8.9.20, and let's find out what that is. One danger that you have in here is that it actually run an update. So if we were in a more delicate site, probably I will go back to the beginning. So I think I forgot to mention this, but once you have your DDEV, once you have your old composer, once you have the site working as it is without doing anything for the upgrades, create a branch for updates that is dedicated only to these updates, make a commit, and take a copy of the database. And simple commands, we're going to do it in the later, so you're going to see the commands later that I do to take a a checkpoint, a snapshot of where I am. But this is important. If I were to need to go back to the beginning, once I found out how I can fix the Yoast SEO module, right?
Mm-hmm.
That those 3 steps are going to allow me to bring again the database into DDEV before the changes of DB. It's going to allow me to go back into the code, the original code, start the process again, and add in the steps that we did whatever needs to be done for Yoast SEO. We're not going to do that, but we're going to fix Yoast SEO anyway. So how do we find out what problem this is? The first thing that we need to do is to find as composer with an info what version of Yoast SEO I have. So I run a composer info to the module, the name of the package, Drupal/Yoast SEO. And it's telling me that I'm having version 2.10.
So again, this is according to Composer. This is the version it's trying to install, correct?
Exactly. That is the code that is in my code base right now, because we already run the Composer update successfully and actually downloaded it. Mm-hmm. And it's what replaced whatever old Yoast SEO I had at the beginning.
We have that version. Mm-hmm. We were just trying to update the database for that version. Okay.
And it's not working. It's giving an error. Mm-hmm. So here is where I need to come back, and I have it here. I need to come back to the page of the module, and I'm gonna, no, this is not the module. This is the module that is giving us some problems. And I need to see the releases. And this is what's interesting. The 2.1 version, you can see here, see my mouse, was released on January 11, 2025. And this is an important note for everybody. They just went and say, this works with Drupal 8, 9, 10, 11. Mm-hmm. This makes me feel like maybe they're not paying too much attention on what is compatible. What? Because if you are in 2025 and you're still compatible with Drupal 8, probably not true with so many PHP changes. Drupal 8 was PHP 7.4. Today, we're about to move into PHP 8.4, and there are actually compatibility issues between 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3. So you can imagine how many deprecations in compatibilities are in the middle for just PHP. How do you fix this? And here is the first step is I'm going to go to the Drupal core releases, right? And I'm going to find my current version. It was 8.9.13, and I moved it to 8.9.20. So I'm going to go and find where 8.9.20 is. Little spoiler, I already went through this, so I know it's in the page number 4 of the release. These are releases of core, and I know it's in the bottom. So right here is version 8.9.20. Very important. On every version of Drupal core or modules, if you are moving between versions of modules consciously, be aware of these little release notes. They may tell you to do something with upgrades. And we're going to see an example in one of the next iterations. But what I'm going to do is go into the description of the version I am right now, right? Mm-hmm. And this is an update. So this is a travel in time kind of situation. We are traveling in time. We went all the way to the past where Drupal 8.9.3 was alive. Mm-hmm. We move into 9.20. Now we are in that time of period where 9.20 was alive when it was released. And I'm going to find that date, and it's here, and it says that Drupal 8.9.20 was released on November 17, 2021.
Okay.
And here we're going to use something that we may call node release date matching, version release date matching. So we're going to match the date of the release of this version with everything that may be given as an issue. If you want to be super safe, you could go through all your modules and do this to ensure that you're not going to have any issues. But these little small updates through modules that are not affecting your site, that you tested already, if you test them, and not affecting your site, they are just helping you move forward faster, right? So my opinion is, if you're not getting a problem, you don't give yourself a problem. I apply black box to everything, open the black boxes when they're needed. We didn't know which module was gonna give us an issue. It was Yoast SEO. Now we're gonna open the black box of Yoast SEO. What version do we need? So keep in mind this date, November 2021. I go back here. At the bottom of the module page, there is the view all releases. I am going to go there. And I'm assuming I saw that they have 2 and 1.9. And if I go back in time, I see that I'm on 2 alpha, right? And versions 1. So I'm going to click on any of them just to see this little list. And this little list is all the versions that were created according to those dates, right? And this is the beauty. If I go back to my date here, November 2021. So that is telling me 1.8 happened after Drupal 8.920. 1.7 happened before. So what is my solution? Bring the right code for this module that is compatible to what I'm doing. So I'm going to go back to my site. I'm going to edit my composer JSON manually. I'm going to find the Yoast SEO. Remember, this is absolutely, this is, what's it called? Alphabetically done. So it's easier. And I'm going to lock the version that I want of this module. So let's confirm. I want 1.7. And if I want to know which the version, what is the constraint, I click on the version and I can see the constraint here, right? Where my mouse is. I don't want the caret because I want to lock it. I don't want anything bigger than 1.7. I want 1.7 specifically. So I lock it on 1.7. I escape it, save. Now, I updated Composer JSON. That means I need to run a Composer update. So it updates my code and composer.log.
So you picked the version that was with a release date just prior to the core version release that you're on.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because that's the time I'm living right now. I'm on November 17, 1992. 2020, right? I can't remember.
Yes, November 17th, 2022, I believe. Is that right?
When am I living? I'm living on 2021.
Oh, 2021. There we go.
So I just got over COVID and we're good. We're past COVID, but just at that time is when I'm living. You can notice here that since I block it, it is returning to version 1.7.0, the version I want. And since I use the -w, it's bringing another package that needs to be downgraded or updated, whatever is needs to be done. It needs to be deleted. It's not needed anymore.
Okay.
So Composer update means the code now for this module is correct. So after Composer update, we run updb. And everything seems to be okay. And now we're running correctly.
We're able to successfully run the FDB without any error this time.
Without any error. So no, there are no code errors. We come back to our site. And as again, I said this is an empty site. So we're not going to be looking at whatever is happening because there is not even content. And the theme I'm using is not even aware of an empty site is for another site, but I'm just using it as an example of the problems you get during um, an upgrade. Assume you review everything, the site is working, everything, your functionality is working now on 8.9.20, and we are happy. So this is our first step. We are going to find two kinds of stops on an update. We're going to find stopping points and stable points. And that's how I call them. Stable points is like this. What just happened, we are stable. I'm on 8.9.20. I have organized my modules and all the code I have is compatible with my database. I run up DB. Everything is working. We're assuming I did a very good QA or a decent QA of my site, or my functionalities are working. I'm on a stable point. There may be a stopping point. And a stopping point is when I'm trying to do something, and what happened with Yoast SEO appears or happens with a custom module, right? In that case, my stable point was the beginning. And I have to pass this to everybody in my development team to fix the errors that are not allowing me to move into the next stable point. And that is important. That's when I call the stable point a stopping point. A stopping point requires me I cannot update anymore. Something is giving an error. I cannot keep moving forward. I need to go back one step and fix that before I can keep going. And that is important. But we are in a stable point. So what do? We save it. I'm on my own branch. You can see updates, press record. So I am going to add every changes that have been created. I'm going to commit those changes. Correct?
Nope. Did you want that quote?
Yeah, I'm probably going to need this here and this here. Right? I'm not going to push it because we're doing this locally, but then comes the next part of the snapshot. I'm going to tell my little friend here,
Nope. 8.9.
there you go. We're going to call it update press just so it's a different copy of what I did before. You can see I'm sending it into .dot. So I'm actually taking it out of this folder and just leaving it somewhere. Why do I do this? Because if something happens from now in the next iteration of the upgrade and it requires development, I can come back to this one, release it, and stay there until everything is fixed. As I mentioned in the presentation, or by this time I will have mentioned in the presentation, updates should happen by themselves. They are not part of your development cycle. They are more part of your hot fix cycle. Here is why. You cannot give updates as part of your sprints to one person, because updates, every time they get to a stable point and you decide you're going to stop there, need to go through a full release cycle. They need to go all the way to production to make sure any changes to your production database are up to date to wherever in time your point of time you are with your updates, right?
Mm-hmm.
So updates should happen by themselves, and updates should happen in their own full cycle. So if I know I have to update, I'm in the middle of a sprint, somebody does the updates, goes through the whole cycle, release to production, and let all the developers know that they need to get new copies of the database and new copies of the code. We don't want a developer changing composer.json or leaving an old composer.json entry with an old version of a module that is going to break your site. We don't want any other work to stop the upgrades of or the updates of your site. That's how you get into the point of staying in a very old Drupal. And the more old it is, this is like a snowball. If I stay back one patch version, I may be okay. If I stay back two, maybe I'll be okay. If I'm staying back one minor version, now I'm starting to have issues because my technical debt is growing. If I am now behind two minor versions, that's why you see sites still in Drupal 9. Because now the process is so big of getting up to date that there's no one that can do it without stopping the whole development. So as I will also mention in my presentation, if you are in a case like this where you are in Drupal 8, the first step of an update is to get to the latest Drupal that is stable with LTS versions. In this case, today is Drupal 10, and all development needs to stop. You cannot keep developing if you are in an old version because you're just sinking or digging a bigger and bigger and bigger hole. And when it explodes in your face, it's going to explode in a really, really bad way. And I've seen it happening with customers. So anyway, we just took a little checkpoint, a little snapshot of what we're doing. And we're going to go into the next iteration. But we're going to take a little half a step here. Gabor from Drupal, Gabor Hoschi, I believe is how you say his last name, he created Upgraded Status. Upgraded Status is a module that allows you to have a very graphical view of, from your code base, what is needed to move into the next major version of Drupal. And I truly recommend installing this module. So we're going to go into our half step by installing the Upgraded Status module. So I'm going to require it. DDEV Composer required. It's going to bring, I use the -w because it uses a lot of packages. And then I'm going to enable it via Drush. And let's go take a look at this in our site. Now on reports, and I need to refresh. On reports, I have upgraded status. And upgraded status is going to tell me that at this point, I'm perfect to move to Drupal 9 because I'm on version 8.9.20, that my PHP is okay because it's 7.4, my database is okay. It is talking about Apache at this time. Remember, this is upgraded status 2021 or close, not the latest upgraded status. And also, but it's telling me my Drush version that should be 10, not 9. And it's also talking about one theme. It's recommending I remove it, but I'm not going to remove it because I want to upgrade it just for the example. It recommends to remove this because it's not being enabled. And two modules that do not find versions that are compatible with Drupal 9. At least upgraded status doesn't. So let's work each one of them. The first one is Drush version 10. That's an easy fix. I'm just gonna run require and let me clear this so we are running commands on the top. But I cannot run outside the dev yet. So all I'm doing is starting to follow the instructions of the upgraded status. And that's why upgraded status is your friend. Because it's going to allow you to do this. And I upgraded Drush. So after that, I'm going to run a CR. Come back to the site, refresh upgraded status. We are good now. And I'm going to move to the next issue. The next issue is the SaaS Bootstrap starter subteam, and it's telling me the name is Bootstrap SaaS, which I have here. And I already went to the releases, and on their releases, and actually, I want to see all releases. I want to find the version 1, which is not anymore here, so I'm going to come to all releases. And probably I have to find a 1 version. So here is 1.2. Upgraded status is talking that I am on 1.1, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I need to move into a closer one. So if I try to move into 8.3, I'm going to see that it's possibly a good idea, but we're going to take the advantage just as an academic exercise to check the other version, because it's 2020. I'm in 2021, so this is already 1.5 years old. But I saw that they had a 5 version, right? So I'm going to see the list of version 5, and I can see that for October 10, 2021, there is a version 5, right? Again, this is an empty site. I'm going to assume nothing is going to happen with my team, but this, in a real site, this might be an occasion of a stopping point, and go make sure your sub-theme of Bootstrap Barrio can work with the version 5 of Bootstrap Barrio, or the Bootstrap SaaS version 5. So all I'm going to do is select the version I want. I'm going to copy the requirement. Again, I'm going to clear here. I'm going to run this inside the dev, but I'm actually going to lock it into the version that I know is living at the same time of 8.9.20, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get a little conflict. So I need to find out what is that conflict. And it's telling me use -w, which I forgot. So let's see if -w fixed it. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it does it, but we'll see. And it didn't. So it's actually giving us a problem, and it's saying that Bootstrap SaaS 505 requires Bootstrap Barrio at least 5.1. So that means I need to in the current version is 4.33. So in here is where I start looking at, do I need to change my custom theme? It is compatible with the next version of Bootstrap Barrio. So we are moving major versions in a module. When you're moving in major versions in a module, look for all the documentation that exists for any upgrade paths that they may have mentioned. In the case of Bootstrap Barrio, which is here, they actually have. It is right here. So just go and read, and you're going to find out. In this case, it's very simple. I know it. And it's something about layouts, right? Like that's it. If you use display suite, or if you have layouts, do this. That's the upgrade path from 4 to 5. So I can assume there are not many issues. Again, if this was a live site, a delicate site, I will stop here and had my developers not run a full update, but just run my front enders to run an update to Bootstrap 5 and make sure the theme is going to live. But to what version of Drupal Bootstrap? We go back to our version release date matching. So I need to see, it mentioned 5.1 in my composer JSON. Let's confirm that. Yes, at least 5.1. So I want to see all my releases of Bootstrap Barrio. And I want to see, I'm going to try the 5.0 and see all the releases. And I'm looking at anything that is before November 2021 will be these two versions. Apparently, they had a 5.5 and a 5.1 at the time. Since I'm already going into the major version upgrade, I'm going to use 5.1.6, not 5.5.3, because now I'm adding way more complexity to this upgrade, right? And I can see clearly that the current version is 5.5. So it makes sense that as long as I can move here in versions 5.1 subversions, right, I can pretty much get closer to modern and then just check what is the upgrade path when we get to this period of time. So our version is the closest one. We said 5.1.6. So now, since this is a dependency, I can either do Composer manually and lock both versions, or I can actually do, and I'm pretty sure I have this command already done, so I'm going to take this out because I don't use this. You can name two packages. In Bootstrap Barrio, we said that, nope, we were going to use version 5.1.6. So now I have to update two different packages, which is 5.05 and 5.1.6, but I'm getting another error. And the other error is that there is an error on my command, and I know which is the error because it's Drupal, not Drupal. And I forgot the -w. So we're going to go to this. And in here, and this is important, and in here, now I have three modules that are locked. So that's the reason I have this window here, because I need to keep track of the modules I locked to be moving them. Whenever we get to any point where I'm using a Drupal version that is around the August 14, 2022, which is the next version, that's when I change the version of Bootstrap Barrio. And I keep matching the dates and moving these three modules that I stopped now, two themes and modules, keeping them with core. I don't know if that is kind of clear, Nora.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
That since now that I locked three modules, I have to be aware of those three modules as I move versions of Drupal core. I will only change those modules. I need to be aware of the dates. So I will only use 1.51.7 in this case for Barrio when I get to a Drupal core version that is after August 14, 2022. Right now, we're in November 2021.
That makes
So
sense.
it's just a fact of playing, this traveling time kind of thing. So, okay, I fixed one more. I'm going to refresh here. And actually, no. It did update it, SAS, Bootstrap Barrio. So let's check if there was some updb because I updated some packages. Nothing happened. Clear cache as always. Refresh. And now I'm in the 5.05. It's still saying that it's not compatible with Drupal 9, but we know it's compatible with Drupal 9. And the reason we know is because literally says there in the release page that it's compatible with Drupal 9, but upgraded status could get confused. We're going to ignore that. Now we need to fix these two modules, backup migrate, and also SEO checklist. And I already did the investigation. SEO checklist have the releases here. So I want to be on version 5.1.0 for that one, which is August 2021. And I want to have backup and migrate probably in version 5.01. Right? So backup and migrate is version 5.01. And the best way, if I don't want to do requires, they will run immediately the things that I need. So I can come here and basically do it manually. SEO checklist is right here. And I can edit and lock it into 5.1.0. And then find backup and migrate. So I'm looking these ones because right now upgraded status is telling me they're not compatible to move forward. So I need to, instead of finding out what is the next version, I rather start with finding out what is the next existing version at that time. And I can double check here. And now you see how it is compatible, 5.01. So it's a process that is repetitive, and I'm going to run a DDEV composer update. We are ready. Drawshop DB in case these modules updated anything. We have one for backup and migrate. No errors. We are good. And we check what's going on here. And now we said we were going to ignore this because this is an error on upgraded status. We know this 5.05 version is compatible with 9, and it's telling us that we are ready to move to Drupal 9. I want to make a note here very quick, Nora, about patches. If you can see, we're getting this error on a patch up here.
I was just about to ask you.
Thank you. So what happened is our original composer was using some patches. And that is another composer thing that you can do. Again, there is a lot of documentation out there, but I can use patches from issues that have not been committed at the time to obtain a fix or a new functionality or whatever it is that I'm needing. So most likely this patch cannot be applied for two reasons. One, the patch is too old. I need to get a new patch. Two, the patch is already applied. So it cannot happen. I know in this case that the patch is already applied, so I'm just going to delete it from the patch list. But I wanted to mention something. Never use local patches. If you are patching a contrib module and you found an error, please submit an issue, create the code, create an issue fork, which is the way to do it now, and then create a merge request and use that merge request in a very easy way, I'll show in a second, as your patch source. So first I'm going to delete this.
Well, before you delete, just to clarify here. So you were saying that it may be one of two scenarios. One,
yes,
either the patch is too old, which means that it just won't apply to this newer version of the module. Or the local code was already patched previously. Is that what you were meaning by the second option?
Yes. Remember that we're moving ahead on time. We're moving forward on time. So it's possible that whenever they put this patch, and we can know if it's well done, it's going to look like this. It's referencing an issue, and it's giving me the issue number and the number of the comment, which was the old Drupal way. Today's issue forks and using a merge request, which is better because I don't have to keep changing these patches if the patch needs to be re-rolled. And reroll means there was a new version of the module, issue is still not closed. I need to reroll it to make sure it applies to the latest dev version of the module until it is closed and it becomes part of the module.
Okay, so I think this is just an exercise of knowing the decision of how to handle this may be dependent on just knowing what newer version of the module that you like when the patch applied, like what version of the module that patch was for, and if you had upgraded that module since then, looking to see what had happened with that.
Exactly.
Patch.
So
Correct?
follow the patch, follow the issue, and see what is the patch. And I had this as an example. It's not part of our code base, but this is an interesting example. It started about 9 years ago. So it started with the old version of patching, which was part patches were provided in comments. And you will use the patch for that particular comment. So if you see here, I'm going to try to open in a new tab. The URL has the number of the issue and the number of the comment where that patch was happening. If for any reason you were using the patch on comment 11 and it didn't apply, most likely it's because you needed to apply the patch on comment 12, which were always up here. But the new way is issue fork. And this is an interesting case because comment number 12 was 3 years ago. And we actually found this issue with my wife in an old project that we had. And we discovered that somebody actually moved that patch 12 into the right version, which is an issue fork, and then generate a merge request. And this is the beauty. When you have a merge request, you can look at the merge request, go to the URL at .patch, and that should be the patch that you use in your Composer JSON. The advantage of this model is, since it's a merge request, any changes, any re-rolls, any modernization of that patch is going to already come into your Drupal core. And that is something that you need to analyze per patch and per module if you're using patches.
This is a unique feature, I believe, of GitLab in general, is that there is a patch file available
for the merge
requests.
And we're using that, which is way better than trying to, keep up to date with the patches that are happening through time here. In our case, we're going back to our case.
Are you saying in this scenario where the merge request is still actively being developed on, and there may be a newer version of the patch that gets uploaded at some point? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Is it better to use that because of that? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. The merge request never change. The merge request stays and it gets updated. So since I have a link to the merge request, when Composer goes and get the patch, always gets the latest one. So that's why we want to move old patches to merge requests. Again, I truly recommend to everybody, if you're using a patch, you discover you're using the old version of patches that are in comments, and you're having these kind of problems, take the time to use Drupal pod, create an issue fork, create a merge request with the same patch. You don't need to work on fixing the issue. Just make sure the same patch is in a merge request, because it's going to make your life easier if anybody fixes the issue or keep working, because you just need one URL, not one URL per comment, which is the case. This was issue 2976934, comment 3. So if I needed to update this to a new comment, probably will be comment 8, comment 7, comment whatever. But in my case, I don't need it. So I can actually, I know it's done. It's patching Drupal Bootstrap Barrio.
So in that case, you had found that patch ended up getting merged into the newer version of the module, correct?
Correct. And now I'm happy. And I'm going to run another Composer update. And I made a mistake with the Oh yeah, I forgot. I leave one extra line here. And when I rerun, it's not gonna try and patch anything, and it's not gonna give me an error. And I fixed that patch problem, and that was just like a little side note to make sure everything is okay and be cleaning as I move forward.
Perfect.
So now that I am, this is a very important time in an update. I'm on 8.9.20, right? Drupal upgraded status is telling me I can go to Drupal 9. What version of Drupal 9 do I go to? And here we use the same philosophy, release version date matching. I am on Drupal 8.9.20. So I'm going to go back to the list of issues. And I can see here, and this is because I know they're all security updates, so that is telling me that they all lived at the same time. I could, click on each one of them and see that they were released at the same day. But I know these three versions were living, 8.9.20, 9.1.14, and 9.2.9, were being released simultaneously in November 17, 2021. So we are going to trust the process. Since Drupal 8, we said we can upgrade from 8 to 9, from 9 to 10, if you are in the latest one. And we're going to trust upgrade status, who's telling me I can. Theoretically, I could go to either 9.1.14 or 9.2.9 based on that premise, right? They should be completely upgradable.
So we could just see that based on that these releases were happening around the same time, these patch versions were happening around the same time. That we know that there, I mean, can we presume, or do we need to look somewhere else to know that there wasn't an 8.10, for instance?
Just make sure, and you can ask ChatGPT, you can ask Google, is 8.9.20 the latest one? But we can also trust that the upgraded status knows which version at the time, because he's acting, upgraded status at this time is acting like it exists. It joined us in this, time travel that we're doing. Mm-hmm. He knows that this version is compatible with Drupal 9. So I could move into Drupal 9 safely.
I gotcha.
At the time. That's something that the Drupal community is trying to maintain. So I go back here to the releases.
And you're choosing which 9 version? I'm sorry.
That's the point. I could use 9.1.14 or 9.2.9. But I think that going to one major version plus 2 minor versions is quite dangerous. Some people will recommend go to 9.0 first. I don't, because at this time, the reality is that the latest 9.0 happened like way before. Mm. So for me, this is a, trip through memory. I don't want to go back. I want to stay. I want to move sideways to the next major version. So I'm going to choose 9.1.14. So my next step is to tell Composer. And as you can see, this is,
well, before you do that, would you normally commit and save off the database again? Or do you feel like this jump is not too far?
This jump is not too far. I haven't had any updates. I haven't had any Drupal updates. When I run the Drop DB, nothing is happening. We said that we're going to ignore that we jump a major version on Bootstrap Barrio, right? If you cannot ignore that major version, we should not even doing this, right? But we're going to ignore whatever issues that can have, because it's an empty site and just for the academic, it was done for the academic, presentation, that sometimes one module will require another. So that means I have to lock 2 of them for one. So yeah, no, this is not a time. I'm still on 8.9.20. These are very, very minor versions updates that I have done so far. They are just preparation to actually do a major update, which is what is about to happen. So in this case, it's better to do this, the command recommend run composer require of Drupal core, recommended Drupal core scaffolding with the right version and the dash dash no update. But this that I'm doing is basically the same. And I find it easier, especially to follow up what I'm doing when it's several, in this case, 2 modules that I need to lock. So now I'm locking core version. Oops. I'm locking core version to the version that I want to go. Again, I'm on 8.9.20. And I'm using my hands because of that, which is 17 November 2021. So I'm going to move to 9.1, the closest version of 9 that was released, in this case, exactly at the same time. But this is the beauty. At all times, and especially now that we have LTS versions, 2 versions of Drupal are going to live at the same time and are going to be maintained. So everything that is done in Drupal 9 that is not deprecated is going to be released also in Drupal 8. So that means if I'm on 8.9.20, most likely, except for deprecated things, I have everything that 9.1 has. So it's a safe bet. So I'm going to run a composer update -w and hope that no conflicts arise. And nothing happened. So that means we got updated.
Woo!
Drush up DB, never, ever, ever forget up DB. And now I have my problem.
Mm.
And my problem is simple and it's also here for academic purposes. So I'm not going to run Drush up DB. If you read the problem, it's saying that my custom theme is not compatible with Drupal 9. And this is just a little historic piece of information. I am going to edit my info YAML. And at the end of this file, there is a core compatibility that says 8.8, right? That was the old way. When we moved into Drupal 9 and before we moved into Drupal 9, it was compatible in versions of 8, but as preparation for Drupal 9, we changed the way we declare compatibility of modules so they can be declared compatible with different versions. This style that we have here only allows 1 version at a time. So I could not have this theme saying that it's compatible for 8 and 9, but in the new versions of the module, right, I use something like this. So I'm gonna give me 1 second because I have it somewhere in my notes. So I'm gonna copy the text just so I don't have to write it again. And I'm gonna come to my editor. I'm gonna delete this because they're not compatible. And just for organization, I'm gonna put it on the top. And I'm gonna put the new core version compatibility. And that's it. I'm telling the theme that now it's compatible with 9, 10, and 11. And again, this is an empty custom theme. It's an empty site. I'm assuming that it's okay. If I were in a live site, I will need to check my theme for actual compatibility with Drupal 9. So now I run my DB again, and I don't get that warning anymore. I just get all the modules. System means core. So I have my core updates, and you see how few there are? Because I'm still in the same amount of time period, same date. Run them, no errors. I haven't moved dates, so I don't need to check my locked modules. They are in the same period of time still. But now, now, upgrade the status, I'm gonna update it. It's giving me a completely version of events. Why? Because it detects I'm on 9.1.14. It detects that I have an old version of Drupal 7 because it's thinking, let's go into Drupal 10.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling me that Chaos tool is in an old version, that this theme keeps being incompatible, but we already know so far it's compatible, and we're not going to go to 10 yet. We still need to get to the latest 9.4 that is telling me to go. And it's telling me that I need 8.1 at least, right, for 10. And give me a way to do it so I can actually do a composer. Why not? Inside DDEV, I'm going to clear again. And it's telling me that Laminas requires maximum 8, right? I'm on 9, 8.1 is for 10. Let's see if I can go to 8. I want to move PHP forward as well because I'm already on Drupal 9. And here it requires you to know that Drupal 9 is compatible with PHP 8.0. This is just if you've been following Drupal, right? So I know it is. And now I'm on Drupal 9. I have to do the next change. And the next change is to tell my DDEV that now we're going to use the Drupal 9 recipe because I'm in Drupal 9 to make sure DDEV has everything, and that I'm going to use Drupal 8.0, which is compatible. I just saw that it's compatible with everything that I have.
So now we're getting our environment up to date with our version of Drupal and PHP
Correct.
that we know should be compatible with the 9.1.14 that we're running right now.
Correct. We are just going to be in a cycling in a cycling pattern. And this is the cycle that I need to follow. I need to get to 9.4, right? I'm on 9.1. So what I say it should happen is, and you can upgrade here, and then it's going to detect that you are on version 8.0.30, but of course it still wants 8.1. But we will revisit all these when we get to the latest 9.4. Now, I want to tell everybody, or forget about this. This is me preparing the site originally, and it's a couple of modules that I had to, in a hacky way, take out in order to prepare the site to, follow the process and show us the errors that matter to the update. So this is completely irrelevant at this time.
Okay. So your decision that your goal is to get Drupal core up to the newer version before you attempt to upgrade the PHP version? Is that correct?
No, my goal is to get to the latest 9 before I even pay attention to upgrade status again, because upgrade status allows me to see what's going on, but it's thinking about Drupal 10 now.
I see.
So I need to get to 9.4 is what it's telling me. I'm on 9.1. And in here, it's going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to go very cyclic. It's the same commands. I'm going to keep going. The site is not going to give us any more errors because I already went through this, and I make sure because I just wanted to show the cycle that comes after this. All this version can be a stable point. So I can get to 9.1.14. I already have everything, right? So as we mentioned before, it's time for me to save my changes. Right? And save my database. This is a stable point. I could easily go and release this all the way to production. And at this point, I already reduced the technical depth from 8.9.13 to a 9.1.14. 9.14. I have not reduced the technical depth in terms of time. But here is how we're going to do it. And I'm going to do it very quick and cyclic. Please stop me if you feel like you have to ask something. Next step is not going to be to 9.2. My next step is to make sure I go to the latest 9.1, right? So I don't
similar
remember
to
that.
before, you went to from 8.9.13 to 8.9.20. You're
Yeah.
now going to the latest patch version of 9.1, which is 9.1 point something.
And I can always ask Drupal. 9.15.
Oh, okay.
Google always.
Not very far.
Not very far. This is going to be pretty easy and it should not be a problem, right? So again, edit your composer JSON, find your Drupal core composer scaffold, Drupal core recommended, change it to 15. Oops. You don't have to use my beloved Vim. You can use any other editor that you want, Visual Studio, but I just didn't want to have more windows in the presentation. But after you update that, you run a composer update.w, and you can see not many changes, only Drupal core, no modules. I recommend, and I didn't mention this, but I'm going to mention it, read what gets updated, just so you know what's happening if a module got updated, if something failed, right? And if we have done this on the Yoast, we will have noticed that it got updated from 1 to 2 at the beginning. So that is an alarm. That is a little, alert. Go and check if that's actually a good thing. But nothing else happened. I'm pretty sure this should not do anything because I just move a little patch version, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now what I need to do is come back to the releases of Drupal.org, find 9.15,
Mm-hmm.
and see what version of 9.2 is at the same time.
Aha.
We could go into the dates to confirm, but for quickness, these two were released the same day because they always live at the same time. Remember, there's always at least two versions. 3 beta, 2.10, and 9.1.15 are living at the same time. So it stands to reason that my next step (9.2.10). I forgot. Change composer JSON to lock the version of core. Run composer update. Nothing happened. We had more updates here, right? So peruse what happened. Redirect went from 1.7 to 1.11. Shield from 1.6 to 1.8. So in here, we're taking advantage of Composer. Composer knows that they are compatible, and there are people that is very good. The main modules are very good. You will find versions of modules that will tell you, I'm only compatible with 9.3. So that version will not come at this time because we are on 9.2. So Composer is very good at looking at that if the module maintainers are very good at documenting what are, which didn't happen with the Yoast SEO, sadly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we can see everything that changed. The laminas, I didn't pay attention to the laminas just because I know laminas is a Drupal core requirement, dependency, the word. So, okay, I did that. Next step, as always, an UpDB. I can assume there are some because some modules move, redirect, shield, file, layout builder, those are core, but core move, etc. This is expected. No errors. No errors. I don't have to pay attention to anything. Go check your site, QA your site. Everything is okay. Um,
And commit at this point too?
Correct. I would say you have two options here because now we know the cyclic way of this.
Mm-hmm.
I can go to the latest 9.2
Mm-hmm.
and decide that my stopping or stable point is there. Or I can do it here if my QA said you are good, it's looking good, nothing is broken.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
So yeah, I guess
But
it wouldn't be a bad idea to check to see what is the latest patch version of 9.2 and then do a commit at that point. Is that what you're saying?
yes, correct. Which I can tell you is 9.2.21.
Okay.
So something that you can do is keep looking at here, and there is 8.9, 9.20, 9.115, and you can keep going in 9.211, 9.213. And you see how now 9.313, 9.219, now 9.3 and 9.4 are living at the same time? So that 9.220, and we are on, and I know this, we are on page 3 now. And I know this is the latest one, 9.221. You can see there are no more 9.2. Now it's 10. Who comes? So here we are. 9.221 is the latest one. So it's a good thing to come to this one. And I can see dates. I'm not going to do it, but you can see the dates. I haven't moved forward so much into time, right? But I wanted to show you something. 9.221 is going to be one of those. On all of this, I should be looking at my locked modules, right? Like I locked Bootstrap SaaS, I locked Bootstrap Barrio, I locked Backup Migrate. Remember in the past,
Mm-hmm.
I locked SEO checklist and
Mm-hmm.
I locked Yoast,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I should be keeping an eye on the date of the release that I'm going to. So now I'm going to June 10, 2022. Half a year has passed
Mm-hmm.
since we started. And in this case, and I'm going to focus on this, this is the only module that actually oh no, this is not the one. I need to look. So which one was it? I know one of these modules. Oh, yeah, I think it happened when I moved to 9.3. So right now, I don't have a module that I want. I don't want to use a dev version, right? Like I don't have any of these right now that really, this is 2022, not yet. It's December, not yet. Bootstrap. The next one is August, not yet. Bootstrap SaaS. The next one is August. So being on here on 9.2.21 will be good enough, right? So I'm going to do it very quick, which we already did. No, we haven't. So the composer JSON, we know the process now, right?
Yep. Update
21,
your composer JSON to the newest patch version of 9.2.
composer update to make sure we get the new code. If there are modules, there may come if they specifically mention a specific version. It's not going to be the case, but I can see I'm getting whatever it is that needs to be updated. Confirm I don't have UpDBs, just to confirm. And now I'm 9.221. This is a good time to create a checkpoint. right? I just tested my site. Everything is okay. QA is happy. What did I do? Sudo. Oh, interesting. Perfect. And now I go to 9.2.3. So we come back here. Same philosophy. I'm not going to go to 4 too much. I'm going to go to the next one, 9.3.16, which is alive at the same time. So I keep using my dates for this. So again, composer. And there is only one more thing that I want to show. That's the reason I'm rushing into this. 9.316. And again, we're doing it quick because this side is empty. It's not giving me any issues. I should be testing more thoroughly. And every time I say there is a stop point, I should be doing a full release to production. Making sure all my developers then know they need to get a new database. They need to know that they need to get the code and rebase it onto their code, making sure that whatever they're doing is not going to mess the already updated site. So we go to 9.316.
So yeah, that makes sense. Go through a full testing and release cycle. QA, UAT, all of that.
Yes.
Pipelines, all that jazz.
All of that needs to be tested on each stopping point. And again, a stopping point depends on how complex your site is. Now, as always, a 9.3 is going to bring new modules. So you see how WebForm now allows the site to go to 6.8.1? Because Composer is taking care of that. So I'm looking here that nothing major had happened with modules. I already know nothing happened, but read everything that starts with Drupal. Since that is okay, Drupal.shop.db. Of course, there are actually updates. Nothing happened. We are good. We can move to the next one. The next one is the latest 9.3 before we create a checkpoint, right? Can't remember that one. Yeah, it's not 930. 93.9. I guess we're going to need to come to the releases and find it manually. 9320, 9321, 9322. And it's a very, if anything, tedious kind of thing. But once 9.5 appears, usually I know there are never 4 versions alive. That's something that we try not to do.
On one of those 9.3s and just see on the right, I wonder?
Where?
If you find one of the 9.3s, whichever one it is, that one. Yes.
That is a good point. I may get here.
Go to the right.
Which one is the last one?
Okay.
This is easier. Yes, this is easier. Okay. 9.322 is the latest one. But now, this is what I wanted to show. That's my next step, right? And since we're running out of time, and I know we took longer than expected, now I check my modules, and I know that I should be moving forward with the new version. I'm on 5.1. CO checklist is 5.2 is June. I believe this is the actual one. This is August 2022, right? Versus September 2022. So anything that is before that, I should move my locked modules into that. So the Bootstrap SaaS needs to move into 506. Bootstrap Barrio needs to move into 5.1.7. backup migrate 502. And now we're not still there for this one. So Yoast stays on 1.7 so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all I have to do is making sure these modules are on the right version. So edit, composer JSON, start with core, as always. We said 22, right?
I think so.
9.322.
Yep, 22. Mm-hmm.
Bootstrap SAS 506 is compatible with the days. That's what we're looking at a little bit before. Bootstrap Barrio 5.1.7.
And then one of the SEO ones, right?
Backup
Oh,
and
backup
migrate.
migrate. Okay.
502. And this is wash, rinse, repeat.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a leapfrog thing. We're kind of, doing this, sort of version updating, matching between the contrib modules and the core version updates that we're doing.
Yeah. We focus on those that are showing us incompatible or giving us some specific problems. So we don't have to do it for everything. And we trust Composer with the rest. But if you need more granular control, you should do the same for every module. So once you decide on a Drupal core, you need to go through all your modules and lock versions. The goal is at the end of your update, there should not be any locked versions in your Composer JSON because everything is up to date. So we didn't have any updates on this one. Again, patch version. But, and that, I think I'm going to leave it here because the next step is pretty clear, right? Like 9.4, latest 9.4. So we know my next step is going to be 9.4.6, probably not 9.4.7. And I know because this is a security update, most likely the older security update is the same date.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go to 9.47, then to the latest 9.4, and then to Drupal 10. Keep an eye on the dates when I move forward in time and move the modules that I locked as close as I can. So I want to keep them coming with the Drupal core, just a little bit behind to avoid any issues. And the goal at the end is to stop in reality. This is another stop point. So don't forget to save. And export your database. Because it's very possible that you need to go back if anything, fails. So you always have one point to go back without going all the way back the year and a half that we had on 8.9.3.
So more or less, you're committing or saving a checkpoint at the most updated patch version of each minor version.
Correct.
You're going to.
Correct.
Yeah, it's really smart.
And that's why I say it's a systematic approach. This is the first step on updates. This is the first step. If you are way behind, you need to get to this point. At the end of this, we're going to have a Composer JSON that is modern, that is not locking any versions, that is already on the latest version of all your modules and all your themes and your core, given that there is no module of yourself that requires an older version of a module, right?
Mhm.
When you get to here, if you haven't had to do it, now you can move into the second stage. And there is a kind of a stage in the middle, and it's major version of modules that are compatible with Drupal 10 or Drupal 11, but can already go to the next version. That's kind of in the in between, but not necessary, as long as the versions are still compatible with Drupal 11.
Mhm.
And then from here, it's just composer update, drush DB, composer update, drush DB, drush CR, composer update, drush DB, drush CR. If you are doing config management, I recommend stopping. If you see I never exported configuration, I never did this, and if you need to clean your technical debt, I recommend stop completely development, stop completely config, import and export and management. And once you get to a point that you definitely think it's going to take forever, it's going to take a couple months, I cannot keep going in this cycle immediately, right? In my first stage of updates, now is when I will go and export configuration again. But that's it. That's how I do it to get to a modern version.
Well, this helps, I think, a lot of folks when, dealing with updates. It can be difficult to understand, like how do you know what versions you should be upgrading from and to? And taking this systematic approach, I think, not only is more intentional and things like that, but also kind of helps to show like where the updates have happened within those contrib modules and that core versions as well. So,
And by taking advantage of the checkpoints, as we call them,
mhm.
if you at some point discover something went wrong, you have a fallback. And the
Mhm.
fallback is not way back. So anyway, thank you, Nora, for joining me on this. I wanted to show you. I wanted to have somebody that could tell me, yes, it makes sense. It doesn't make sense. I'm understanding. I know you are very good at that and keeping me clear when I go
It's my
crazy. So
pleasure.
thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Very good. So time to stop the recording.